Hi, and welcome to the first session for GCSE Health and Social Care and Childcare. This is for the WJC Single Award, so that's one GCSE, and the areas that I'm going to cover tonight are for Unit 1. This is a written examination that's an hour and 30 minutes long, and it's 40% of the qualification, and the date of the exam this academic year is the 20th of May 2024. In today's session, I am going to look at the different life stages across the life cycle. I am then going to look at what is growth and how we measure growth, what is development and how we measure development, the 4 areas of development, and also the financial factors that affect our development, so the economical factors that will affect our development. Starting off very simple tonight then, okay, what I would expect you to be aware of are, is that there are 5 areas of life stages. Okay, it begins with infancy for 0 to 2 years of age. Then we move on to childhood, which is 3 to 12 years of age. Then adolescence, which is 13 to 19 years of age. Adulthood then is 20 to 64 years of age. And then we have late adulthood, which is anything 65 and above. So with this simple information, you should appreciate, obviously there are 5 life stages. You need to be able to remember the names of each life stage and also the age range within each life stage. Normally questions on this content are of low value marks only, okay, so maybe 3-4 marks maximum. I feel it is a waste of marks if we're unable to identify the names and obviously the life stages. Possibly what you could be faced with is a scenario of different people ranging obviously in different, and then you have to identify the age range and also the life stage. For an example now that we have on the screen, Alan is obviously 1 year of age. He is in infancy, so they've given you that information. You need to be able to identify the age range of an infant, and obviously that is 0 to 2. Jean then is 71. They've given you the age range in this situation, so you need to identify the life stage, which is late adulthood. Then we have Gary, who is 8 years of age. He is obviously in childhood, and you need to identify that childhood is 3 to 12. Sophia is 53. Obviously, the age range is there, 20 to 64. So hopefully we'll understand that that is adulthood. And then Assad is 14 years of age and is an adolescence. And the age range for that is 13 to 19. To me, if you're getting a mark there for each correct answer, and you can pick up 5 marks quite easily just by identifying those life stages and age ranges. Another way perhaps you could face a question on stages and age range is something similar to what's appeared on the screen. So Christopher is 3 years is a 3-year-old boy. State Christopher's life stage. So here we would need to understand obviously that he is in childhood, and again state the age range of this life stage, which would be 3 to 12 years of age. Similar question to the grid, however, this is only valid at 2 marks. So something 2 marks easily picked up or easily lost. Okay, next today now is growth and development. Sometimes pupils struggle to explain the meaning of growth, okay, and also development. So what I tend to do in the classroom is for them to appreciate perhaps that growth, yeah, is you are growing, it is human growth, okay, and therefore I try and get students to understand that it's normally a physical progress or physical change, so that's why we have the P. It's involved, is involved with your physical growth and also your height. slash length, obviously depending on the age of the person that you're actually measuring. So PWH is a very simple way of remembering what the meaning of growth is. We then have percentile charts. Okay, so hopefully by now that you would have seen percentile charts as part of your lessons in school. A percentile chart is varies. Okay, there are separate charts for children, for girls and for boys. This chart that I'm showing you now is for a boy aged between 0 and 24 months. Obviously, we have a slightly different chart for girls, and also then for any individuals, girls and boys who are 24 months up to 4 years of age. Okay, so how do we measure growth? So we plot key information on a percentile chart, and this is normally used from 0 to 4 years of age. There's a different percentile chart for boys and girls because the growth of the two sexes are different. Therefore, plotting a female on the percentile chart that you see now would give us inaccurate understanding of their growth. When you look at this diagram here, you have a bottom line which demonstrates to you that this is evidence of somebody who is lower down in the percentile, and that's being in the 3rd percentile. And then you have another line at the top which represents children or babies, infants who fall into the 97th percentile. So the difference between these two lines means how heavy your baby is. So do you have a baby that's very heavy and perhaps falling quite high in the percentile, and therefore would obviously plotted toward the top end of the line? Or do you for some reason have a lighter baby and therefore they fall in the bottom percentile for their weight? Okay, what we want is where you can see James is plotted here. Okay, he is on the 50th percentile, so he's bang in the middle of where you'd expect him to be for his weight between 0 and 24 months of age. Okay, anything slightly above obviously is still relatively normal as well, but what you would see perhaps if somebody was maybe on or above this line, this perhaps would indicate that we need to monitor the weight situation. In the same circumstance as well, if you had somebody that was relatively low or below this line, it would be perhaps we need to monitor why they're not gaining weight as the majority of children do. Okay. Why we measure growth. Okay, so a measurement of growth gives us a good indication on how healthy our baby is. Okay, and there are 3 measurements that we plot on a percentile chart, and this is the length or height. Obviously, if we're measuring a newborn baby, they're unable to stand, therefore we have to lie them down and we will measure their length. If we're talking maybe about a 12-month-old baby who can obviously stand, then we can measure their height. Okay, so length or height is the same area of measurement. We obviously measure weight, okay, and also the head circumference, just to ensure that the baby's head is growing again within that expected range. If for whatever reason an individual falls within or without, above or below, okay, it's a good excuse then for us to seek further help and to continue monitoring their progress. Okay. Normally, a health visitor or nurse plots this information on a percentile chart and not a midwife, and that's very important to remember. This is an exam question from the summer series of 23. So Georgia takes James, her 15-month-old baby, to baby clinic for his checkup. The health visitor weighs James. The health visitor records James' weight on a percentile chart. Use the percentile chart opposite to answer the following questions. Identify James's weight at birth. Okay, so when you look at his weight at birth, this would be between 3.5 kilograms or 8 pounds. Again, I think this is a very easy question. However, in the summer, some students did not understand that James was on that middle line and therefore gave measurements to us of possibly the bottom 3rd percentile line or the 97th percentile line. Okay, so in this instance, we would be looking for a dot that's just arrived here. Identify James's current weight, and what you should have identified in the first part of the brief or question is that James is 15 months old. Okay, therefore we needed to go across the bottom till we got to 15 months old, and then obviously all the way up to James. Okay, some students took the readings from here, some students took the readings from here. Okay, we need to get on James, which was right here, and then obviously we would take our ruler and we would go across then to appreciate that he was about 10.2 kilograms and between 22 and 23 pounds. Okay. Describe James's pattern of development. So if this was my son, I would be very happy with his pattern of development or pattern of growth. Okay, why? Because he is growing as I would expect him to grow. He is gaining weight and has followed the expected measurements since birth. If you look at his mark where he was at birth, he was on the 50th percentile. 15 months later, he is still remaining consistent and following that percentile. Okay. Also, you could add he's bang in the middle of what we'd expect him to be. Okay, so a very healthy 15-month-old baby. Suggest one reason for the current weight recording. Okay, so the current weight recording would happen because he's attended a 15-month appointment, and this is where he will get weighed. Okay, to this question and didn't put down that at 15 months he should be going to his health visitor to make sure that he is obviously growing as we would like. Also, James is receiving suitable energy from milk and solid food. Okay, if you would just put milk down here, this would be inappropriate because obviously a 15-month-old should be having far more energy from food and not solely dependent on its milk by now. Okay. Right, now then we're going to look at development. Okay, again, I found that students perhaps think they understand development, but then if you ask them to write the meaning down, they would just say, oh, well, people develop. Okay, so we need to get to grips with how we can perhaps simplify development. So with development, our skills will develop, our emotions will also develop, our ability will develop, and also our appearance. So if we can remember SEAA or C with an A, double A at the end, this will help us form maybe a sentence based on what the meaning of development is. Okay, and I'm sure if you looked at skills, emotions, ability, and appearance, you would all agree that they develop over the years. And the same way as growth, we can measure development. It's slightly different in terms of how we measure it. We don't plot it on a graph like the chart that we've seen on the previous slides. So we measure development by observing a child carrying out a series or variety of tasks or activities that will ensure we get a good indication of their development in terms of physical development, intellectual, emotional, social development. Simple tasks like puzzles, building towers of blocks, placing pegs in small holes, walking, rolling balls along the floor, and so forth are very good ways of being able to measure somebody's growth and development. We call this then the scale the professional term for this activity, okay? A health visitor will come to your home normally, and they will perform these tasks, and the children will feel that they are playing. It's not a test, however, recordings are made of the ability of the child. Can they follow instructions? Can they listen? Can they concentrate? Can they solve problems? And what kind of problems can they solve? And we will challenge the person to perhaps explore different activities depending on their level of intelligence, how much information they can retain, for us to be happy that they are developing in a healthy manner. In certain situations, we perhaps can see then that some children have delayed development. And again, similar to our growth, this is a good reason then why we can first babies and infants, onwards to seek further help. Okay. So there are 4 areas of development. The previous slide helped you to understand the meaning of development. Okay, so that would be our skills, emotions, abilities, and appearance. And now we need to look at the 4 areas of development. Okay. In English, I find this very easy for pupils to remember because it's PIES. Okay, so we have physical area of development, which is to do with growth, our gross and fine motor skills, which I'll talk about later on today, going through puberty, the menopause, and obviously characteristics of aging. Okay. Our I then is our intellectual development, how our language skills improve, how our brain develops, how we learn. Do we have good problem solving skills? Can we play and pick up different skills and abilities through play? And also our memory. Our E then is our emotional development. So as a baby, can I form an attachment and a bond to my key workers, mum, dad, etc. Do I have good self-esteem, self-confidence? Does this change and develop over time? And also develop feelings of my own, which I can control, and appreciate feelings towards others and how other people are feeling. S then is our social development, okay, and this is to do with how well we mix, socialise, talk with peers, make friends, how comfortable we are in new environments, we communicate and interact, and the roles that are around us from day-to-day lives. Okay. A question which easily could arise in terms of assessing your understanding of an area of development, a low value question would be that obviously now if we go back to the question with the growth, Georgia's taking James, a 15-month-old baby, to the baby clinic for a checkup. The health visitor weighs James. Okay, state the area of James's development the health visitor is checking. So obviously here we are checking for his physical development to see whether he is growing as expected. Okay. So obviously I'd appreciate physical as an answer there. Okay, moving on now then to gross and fine motor skills. Okay, pupils need to understand the difference between gross and fine motor skills. Okay, firstly we will look at gross motor skills, which are the large movements that we utilize through large muscles. Okay, this, for example, would be a baby learning to sit unaided, a baby holding their head in a solid position, possibly rolling over, starting to crawl, walking unaided, because obviously the large muscles are being used. Fine motor skills then are the smaller movements where precise direction is required, and this is often associated with the smaller muscles in your hands, in your wrist, in your fingers, and obviously picking up a pencil would be a good example of this. Other things could be doing a zip up on your jacket. Maybe you have buttons on your school shirt, shoelaces, Maybe I wanted to make some beads, so I have string beads, drawing, colouring in between lines, dot to dot, etc. Okay. I often find that pupils mix these up at times, or they perhaps understand that one is small and one is big, but then they lack examples of identifying a gross motor skill and a fine motor skill during different life stages. Okay, and sometimes they'll come up with a perfect answer for a gross motor skill, but it's something I wouldn't expect a baby to do, for example. So again, just look at that question and make sure that you've identified what life stage and is that gross motor skill applicable to that life stage. Milestones are very important. Okay, you might get a question asking you to describe the gross motor milestones during infancy. Okay, so again, here now you need to have a lot of knowledge in terms of, okay, if I'm looking at an infant, I understand what a gross motor skill is. However, can I give a series of examples from birth up to 2 years of age that's appropriate to them? Okay, so this is just an easy activity where obviously I have 9 examples of gross motor skills, and are we able to put these in order in terms of what I'd expect a baby or an infant to do first? Okay, so the first thing I would expect from the list on the left is that they learn to support their head, and they can then roll over. They can sit down or sit up unaided. They then begin to crawl, and they can stand up. And because they can stand up, they can walk. And obviously this might be assisted walking at the beginning, or maybe cruising with obviously putting some weight through a sofa or a bed or some furniture that's around. And then this will progress to running, hopping and climbing. So I just find activities like this just an easy way to remember milestones. Okay, obviously if now I was looking at milestones for childhood, many of the examples would not be appropriate because they're far too basic for them. Okay, so you need perhaps to go away and have a little bit of research time to identify gross motor skills appropriate to childhood. Okay. In the same situation then, I've tried to do something related to our fine motor skills and the stages of development. So we're ranging now from birth all the way through to 8 years of age in terms of, right, in grey we have milestones. Can we perhaps pause this video and try and change the order so we naturally progress through these milestones in the expected development? So first of all, okay, it's reflexive grasp. So this is where maybe a baby would hold an adult's finger. It's natural, okay. It's just a reflective situation, and the hands just naturally close on somebody's finger. Then I would expect them to be able to reach, grasp and put objects in their mouths between 6 to 12 months. 1 to 2 is we can start to build towers of 3 small blocks. Put 4 rings on a stack. Copy circle. Okay, so this is in terms of I have a pen and I can draw a circle on the paper. I can then copy a square, then a triangle. I can form most letters and numbers correctly, and I can maintain good handwriting for an entire story which somebody can read. Okay, very good examples on milestones that you can remember then for a child, or an infant and a child. So as we know, gross motor skills enable babies, children to control the larger muscles in their torso, arms, hands and feet. Okay. Aled is 9 months old. Can you identify 2 gross motor skills he may have acquired? So he may have acquired by 9 months old, and 2 other gross motor skills he may acquire in the next month. Okay. So do you know what a 9-month-old should be able to do in terms of gross motor skills? And do you know what a 9 to 18-month baby infant should do next? Okay, so We would expect to see answers of that a baby gradually controls their neck and back muscles to be able to roll, sit and crawl. Okay, I find this very basic in terms of obviously this is what we'd expect. So just try and put yourself in a position, if there was a 9-month-old baby in this classroom or environment now, what would I expect them to do physically in terms of gross motor skills? And I don't think any of those examples are out of reach for us. Between then 11 to 13 months, so this is what they're going to acquire in the next 9 months, we would expect them to be able to stand, maybe walking by grasping objects, crawling or cruising around, and then walk. Okay, and around about 2 years of age, we would like to see Aled possibly climbing on low furniture and drive a sit-on toy. So perhaps we are aware of maybe balance bikes where children put their legs either side and they can scoot away. Perhaps we've seen them on maybe smaller plastic cars where they sit on the car and they can just use their feet obviously to drive and ride around. Okay, again, this is down to you now just to be able to have a bank of examples for gross motor skills that's appropriate to babies, infants, and then obviously childhood. Okay, so still now staying on the the P of the 4 areas of development, the physical. Okay, a slightly different question now based on an adolescence. Okay, so Katie is 12 years of age. She's just about to begin, obviously, her adolescent stage between 13 and 19 years of age. Analyse the impact of puberty on Katie's physical and emotional development. Okay, so what I like about this question is it's asking you to analyse. It's also asking you to break it down to physical areas and then emotional areas. So it's very important that you have a clear structure before you start writing, because some people will just think, all right, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and then they'll be back and forth from physical to emotional. I would address physical purely first and then emotional second, or vice versa, but just make sure it's kind of split 50-50. Okay. So things that we would expect to be able to understand are the following. Okay, so sudden growth. Okay, so we may be putting a lot of weight on. Our height will increase significantly during this life stage. The breasts obviously will grow in. We'll start our periods. We'll get hair growth. We'll have more estrogen. We'll also gain weight. And in the case of girls, it's more fat that we grow or gain, just because of obviously supporting the baby if we fell pregnant. And I say that thighs spread, that's incorrect. That is our hips obviously widen. I think that's a better term to put down. The thighs spread, our hips widen, just because of obviously the area for a developing baby. You cannot write and just describe that this will happen to them physically. Okay, what I would be saying is, so they have more estrogen. Okay, and the effect then of, or the impact of the estrogen on Katie is that maybe she'll have mood swings, and this will obviously help release ovaries, and this is why she would have a menstrual cycle. During then her cycle, she might feel very insecure, unsure. Perhaps have less confidence. She could have tenderness when her breasts are obviously growing. She can have maybe more body odor increasing because of obviously her glands are producing more sweat. Okay, so please don't go and just describe these changes. We need to analyze the impact of them. Okay. In the same instance, then, we have obviously emotional development. So I would spend now an equal amount of time addressing the emotional development and the changes that happen. And anxiety, or high self-esteem, mood swings, tension, anger, being very uncertain, sexual feelings towards individuals. There's a lot of excitement and confusion. And again, it's not about just describing this is what's going to happen to her. Okay, so for example, now you could look at she may be feeling more anger due to perhaps not being able to deal with the changes, perhaps she doesn't feel that she could speak to people because she's embarrassed by her bodily change, and this is causing a lot of tension for her. Okay, she has more anxiety because perhaps she's unaware of when her periods will come back and forth. She's not falling into a regular cycle, and she's perhaps worried about gaining the weight that she has, and her body's changing. Okay, so we need to analyse these rather than just be descriptive. Okay. There are a couple of examples there. I won't go through them all. I'll just go through one or two of them for you. So I'll pick the first one. She faces new challenges due to the physical and emotional development. Okay, and she might find this hard initially. Okay, she could be falling out perhaps with her mum and dad, just because she's constantly perhaps changing from being sad and happy, and obviously her social circle then will be impacted. And then the other one I'll talk about is she has a negative self-image, and this obviously will affect her feelings. Okay, she doesn't feel as good about herself. She's unsure perhaps if she stopped growing. Okay, she's perhaps aware that she's gained a bit of weight and is very low in terms of self-image. Okay. Describe the expected pattern of language development of a child. So here now I've moved from my P of pies, okay, to more of an intellectual area of development. This was a question from the exam last summer 23, okay, and what we need here is a bank of understanding or examples of how we would expect a child's language to develop throughout the years. Okay, obviously there's a significant increase between 0 and 5. What a 5-year-old can say and converse compared to maybe a 2-year-old, there's an obvious significant increase in their vocabulary and how they go about expressing themselves. Okay. By the age of 6, we would expect children to be able to use up to 10,000 words. Okay, babies start by obviously expressing themselves through crying and facial expressions. Then they will start to babble and form single words, and then this will form maybe 1 or 2 words, a small sentence, and then into a full sentence. Okay. By the time a child turns 2, so from childhood, okay, they have a vocabulary of a few hundred words, and obviously they're just trying now to learn more words and then put in the words maybe in the correct order, and also then extending on their sentences. The development is dependent on a variety of situations. Okay, this is how much perhaps speech experience do they have? Are they being spoken to a lot? Okay, do mum and dad read a lot of books to them? Are they listening to a lot of perhaps nursery rhymes and music? Do they watch educational television programs? And this is where they're likely to pick up on words, which will obviously enhance their development. Okay, they may obviously during childhood then spend a significant amount of time reading independently, and because they're reading independently, then their vocabulary is obviously being extended. Okay, so we need to just look at the basics here in terms of how does a language of a child develop from a young age all the way through. By obviously the end of primary school, they are fluent in a language and possibly other languages, especially if they've obviously got medium school as well. Okay. Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at tonight is a very different topic from our areas of development and growth. We're now going to look at factors that can affect our health and well-being, and the factors tonight are income and debt, savings, the economic factors. Okay, so obviously this will affect our development, our perhaps physical development, intellectual development, emotional development, and social well-being. Okay, and you might just think, well, how does income affect how happy I am? How does income affect my health? Okay, so if we look at income, this is obviously the money that I receive through work, and there is a direct link between how much money parents earn and how well their children do at school from an early age. Okay. We will look also at benefits, so families who receive perhaps child benefit, for example, so any money that is given to families or individuals from the government because perhaps they're on a low income, perhaps they have a disability, perhaps they have children in the family, so therefore they can have child benefit. Savings then is how much money that I perhaps can put away at the end of each month or each fortnight whenever I get paid that I do not need to use because I earn enough to pay my bills, and then I have a surplus or money left over at the end of the month. Bills, okay, you've probably heard enough about bills, okay, and how much money is spent on bills, especially with the energy crisis and bills constantly going up. So this is obviously essential payments, perhaps for rent, for electricity, for heating, for your phone line, your broadband, petrol, insurance, transport, etc. Okay. Debts. Are we borrowing money from the bank? So, for example, if I wanted to buy a house, I would anticipate needing a mortgage, and then I will go to the bank or building society and ask them for a loan of money. Okay, and this is called a debt. Maybe we have student debt, maybe we have an expensive car and we have bought that car on finance, which again is a debt. Okay. Poverty then obviously means that a person has a very low income and cannot afford to pay for the basics of life. And obviously we've had far more contact now with individuals using food banks and communities ensuring that these people gain access to the basics of life. Okay, so how an examination question could look based on these factors. Describe the term savings. Okay, so very easy question. So savings obviously is what you have remaining after you've paid for everything each month. I say each month after you've paid for all your bills. Whenever you pay, maybe you get paid weekly and you pay your bills weekly, and that's when you get your savings. Okay, so discuss the benefits of having savings. Okay, now here we could look at this in terms of, I'm going to give a physical answer, I'm going to give an intellectual answer, I'll give an emotional answer, and I'll give a social answer, just because you're showing that you have an understanding of how savings could affect your 4 areas of development. Okay, or you might just approach it thinking, well, I know I'm confident enough to talk about how savings would be beneficial to an individual. Okay, so I went perhaps for the physical aspect first. So we looked that if I had a lot of savings, I could get healthy food, I could possibly pay for gym membership, and I could get private healthcare if needed. Okay, so that is obviously just looking after my physical health. I then went for, right, how would I feel if I had a lot of savings? And we looked at perhaps the emotional side of it. So there would be less stress because I wouldn't have to worry about not being able to pay my bills, or maybe not being able to buy an essential item for the beginning of school, for example. I'd feel quite safe, comfortable, happy and independent, because I'm not having to depend on other people to help me financially. And also then I thought of, well, how would this affect me socially? So I could perhaps travel a little bit more. I'd have more opportunities. So if my friend said to me, oh, do you want to come out to the cinema tonight and we'll for food first? I can obviously do that because I have the savings there. I have a little bit more freedom then, and I'm not living life so restrictive. Okay. Now, I haven't purposely left intellectual out because I believe there's a lot of intellectual benefits to having savings. And this obviously is I could perhaps buy more resources. I could perhaps get some books that I need. I could perhaps make sure I've got the internet and a device to use at home. I could perhaps pay for further education, possibly send my children to a private school if that saving then savings are there in the bank. Okay, so I didn't purposely leave it out. I just thought maybe I would add that in at the end so you can just appreciate that our intellectuals sides to it as well. Another then question based on money is describe the positive effects of an individual in a job. Okay, so this was an 8-mark question, which I think is a high value question, but an easy 8 marks if you construct a structure to your answer. Okay, and I'm going to break this down for you into the physical side of it, as well as the, get with me, 2 seconds. Okay, so for some reason my answers not appearing even though they're on the screen, so I'll just go through these with you. So the physical aspects, you could say, I'm having to wake up in the morning. Okay, I'm having to get dressed. I'm a little bit more active. I'm perhaps healthier because I've got to eat food before perhaps leaving the house. I'm taking food with me. I have to walk maybe to the train station. I'm walking from the train station to my place of work. I'm doing more steps. Okay. So there's a definite positive effect because I have a job. If you look at this intellectually, I'm needing to remember information. Okay, I'm needing to use my brain. I'm needing to solve problems. I often use the example in school. If I was called in now to work maybe at Costa Coffees tomorrow, I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing, and it would be a major learning curve for me to be able to use the till, to use the coffee machines. And there I would be developing my skills intellectually to be able to make decisions, perhaps return change, and just logically using my brain because obviously I have that job. Emotionally then, okay, positively, I could be quite proud that I've had this job in Costa Coffee. Maybe I had to go for an intense interview and I feel good about myself. I have less stress because I know there's an income coming into the family, and I have more self-worth, and I'm fulfilling myself because I have something to do with my time. Okay. Socially then, obviously, I can go and meet new friends, okay? Maybe I've got old friends that I would invite to Costa's and perhaps I'd see a little bit more of. I would broaden my social circle and I'd have time then to interact and communicate with other individuals. I'd perhaps have to play different roles. For example, maybe I'll take on a role of I'm a shift manager and therefore I might have to have a little bit more authority, and there it would allow me then to perhaps travel a little further because I have that financial resource coming in. Okay. So next session then, and what we'll be concentrating on is a further factors that can affect our development. Okay, today it's just been more of how money can affect our development, but we will look on other aspects then in terms of possibly affecting our development and how we can overcome these barriers. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I will see you hopefully in the next session.